everybody. Welcome back to Popcorn for Dinner. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
I hope you had a nice holiday, nice Christmas. Certainly hope you didn't spend your Christmas day doing what we just did.
Yeah.
This week we are going to talk about the 2003 monstrosity that is Dreamcatcher.
Yeah.
Had you ever heard anything about this before? Has this been on your radar at all?
I knew it was a movie that existed, mainly because it was sitting in your DVD collection.
Yes, it was. This was one of the rare ones that I've owned. It was definitely a like, it's Stephen King, so therefore I'll probably like it. Or I think what's more likely is that as a kid, I forced myself to like it because I like Stephen King. You know, when you're at that age where you can't really decipher, you can't let something you like have a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, it has to be good because I really like Stephen King.
I really liked The Village when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, that one I would put above this.
Yes.
Absolutely. The Village is way better than this. Yeah,
this was like a mind fuck of a movie.
I'm really intrigued to hear just sort of how this story hit you, because I, for one, obviously watched it multiple times as a kid. I remember very, very distinctly as soon as it happened in the movie, I was like, oh, that suddenly brought back a memory of sitting around with friends and watching it and constantly rewinding it at that moment when Timothy Oliphant is having that drunken rant to the woman, and he just stops mid-sentence and goes I gotta pee.
Yeah.
And gets up and that's what's gotta happen. That fucking killed to 13-year-old boys. So we were like, rewind that part again.
That moment killed for me too.
It's Timothy Oliphant. He's so damn charming.
That prompted one of my 8 notes. 8 notes. And it was just, my God, I love Timothy Oliphant.
But yeah, not only having seen it a whole bunch, but I also read the book. I have the book. It's sitting right there. That big purple one. It's it's almost 700 pages. It's a huge book.
That is a huge book to be condensed into that movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge part of it too. I watched the movie first, and then I got the book and I read it, and it's, way different.
Right.
And it explains way more stuff. And not only does it explain way more stuff, but the stuff that's in the movie that they do use from the book just doesn't work in a movie. And it's really, really unfortunate. It's a movie that should totally work on paper.
Yes.
If you don't know any of the actual details. First thing that I wrote down was Lawrence Kasdan directed this. He wrote Empire Strikes Back.
Oh. And
he's like a big respected guy. So it was a big surprise that he was the one who directed this. I had never put it together before. And then immediately after it is William Goldman wrote it? Because he wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He wrote A Few Good Men. He wrote he wrote The Princess Bride, both the book and then the film adaptation to it. He is a huge, awesome writer. So it's how the fuck did those two get this movie, especially when you've then got Morgan Freeman, you've got Tom Jane, Jason Lee, Timothy Oliphant, Damian Lewis, on paper, even Tom Sizemore, who's kind of a lunatic anyway, in real life.
Damian Lewis is the redhead, right?
From Band of Brothers.
Yes,
yeah.
I love him. I've seen him in a few other things, and for whatever reason, Band of Brothers is the only one that ever sticks. But every time I see him, I love him. He's great.
This was the movie that introduced me to him. I had never seen him in anything before this. So it was oh my God, this guy rocks. So anytime I see him, I'm oh, it's Jonesy. That's all I think of is Jonesy. It was wild to sort of see how much of it I remembered and how much of it I didn't, and what sort of came as surprises to me, and what was oh yeah, here's that. The big one that totally blindsided me and I couldn't believe I forgot about it. I completely forgot about the memory warehouse concept. And about how much of the movie takes place in there.
Yeah, that was strange.
That's a conceit that works on the page. That's something that when you're reading the book, it's not a great book either. Stephen King himself says that he doesn't like it anymore.
Okay.
But in the book, that shit, the weird memory warehouse where it's a physical location with papers and boxes and that kind of stuff, it plays way better if it's your imagination
Mhm.
imagining his imagination, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But when it's a movie and you kind of have, it's like we have to have a set, so it
Yeah.
has to have a distinct look to it, and it can't be this sort of dreamy, ethereal thing that it kind of
Mhm.
feels like in the book, at least as far as I recall. But yeah, that doesn't really fly in the movie. Um, and did their friendship seem like overly phony to you with how much like random inside joke crap they kept saying to each other to the point where it felt like it was just trying to beat you over the head with how much of friends they are?
It seemed like they are each other's only friends. Like they have no one else in their lives,
Well,
and
the one guy is married. Jonesy is like married. When he's on the
oh,
phone, he
right.
says something about like he's going to go home and to his wife and whatever.
Right.
So like they, at least some of them have something. And I think Pete
Yeah.
mentions like an ex-wife at one point.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's like just a joke or if that's a real thing.
Mhm.
But in terms of how it feels, I agree
Yeah.
because of how weird they are.
Yeah.
Like
And how
really super
many
weird.
like really old references have just stuck around?
Yeah, really.
Like and all specific to that like first day or so, I'm assuming with
Yeah, they don't go into the detail of how they are as kids nearly enough to
yeah.
explain all the shit. Because like in the movie, there's like 3 scenes of them as kids. I think there's like
I
one where they
mean,
save Duddits, one
mhm.
where they go to save the girl,
Mhm.
one where, or is there only 2? I don't know. Now I think
Um
about it, it might just be 2. Because the one where they go to save the girl is the one where he gives them their powers,
yeah.
and I think that's about where that ends.
Yeah. Maybe there is just the two.
Yeah, so it's like that's all you get
Yeah.
to explain their like crazy friendship, that they wind up with all these weird sayings
Yeah.
like fuckeries and fuckaroos and
Yeah.
oh my god, what's the, I mean, obviously the SSDD, the same shit different day, which isn't
Mhm.
really that unique. It's not like
Yeah.
no one else has ever thought of that.
Yeah.
But there was another thing that they mentioned that was just like really super like specific to their weirdo friendship, where it's like nobody would ever talk like this around real people. You can only talk about this with the weird people who like share this, which I mean, I guess that's kind of the point they're getting at.
Yeah.
Is like their relationship is really fucking weird because
They
there's this
yeah, they all have
alien
this
apparently that has been living among them this whole time and they didn't know about it and whatever.
yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's billions of questions that you have.
There's
Um,
nothing but questions.
and I cannot promise that I will have the answers to all of them.
That's okay.
Um,
I
but
don't suspect anyone has the answers to all my questions.
um, so the basic plot of the movie is there's these 4 guys,
Mhm.
friends forever,
Mhm.
who way in their past when they were kids,
20 years ago.
20 years ago, they saved this little like mentally disabled boy, Douglas, that they called Duddits because that's how
Mhm.
he pronounces his own name, which I guess isn't offensive, but at the same time seems almost kind of mocking a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't think his name is Duddits. He thinks his name is Douglas, but he can't say it.
Yeah.
So you being like, "Yeah, what's up, Duddits?" It does seem kind of shitty.
Yeah.
I liked that when they toasted him in the cabin, that Henry says to Douglas Cavell, like he announces him as a person,
Yeah.
and not just Duddits, that fucking freak. So they save this kid from bullies, and this kid is like really special, and he gives them these weird powers
Mhm.
that basically make them psychic.
Yeah.
And they kind of have some other little things. Pete does some
So-
weird thing with his finger to see where people go. So they get all these crazy weird powers, and they don't really understand
Mhm.
how or why. They know that Duddits is special, but that's one thing
Yeah.
that's not explained at all in the movie, is the fact that it's like, so these kids meet this kid,
Mhm.
they save him from a bully feeding him a dog turd,
Mhm.
which is apparently enough to this kid for them to be like friends for life.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, because then the beaver sings to
The
beaver sings to him, not the beaver. There's not a singing beaver in this picture. The character beaver,
Yes.
because he's always chewing on toothpicks. He sings him Blue Bayou, which so that's like song connects all of them.
Is
And even
referenced
though
later.
referenced all over the movie,
Mhm.
and it's in the book too. It's all over the book as well. So they, go on, they live their lives, they grow up, and they all have this power
Mhm.
that it doesn't seem like any of them are abusing,
Yeah.
except for maybe Henry a little bit. Because one of my first note when it cuts into the movie, Henry's the
Mhm.
first one we meet, and he's
Mhm.
in a shrink's office
Yeah.
talking to a guy, and he starts mentioning shit to him that he's never told him,
Right.
like as part of his like therapy. It's like, you think you killed your mother, don't you? He's like, what? I never told you that. And he freaks out and storms out.
Mhm.
And I was like, that is the most terrifying profession for a psychic to have from the
Yeah.
perspective of a normal person. Like, if I'm a normal person and there are psychics out there, I do not like the idea of them holding the position of therapist. Because, it's like, I guess it's like, it's the best kind of therapist, because it's like, it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to mention that part, but they know it anyway. So they can
Mhm.
really tell you what's right. But it's
Mhm.
also just a super fucked up invasion of privacy that I have a feeling I don't understand why I don't understand how he has any patience, and they don't all run out of the room like that guy as soon as he does something like that. You know what I mean? It seems like he
I
just slips
guess
into it. Like he almost doesn't even realize that he's doing it at first. Because he
I
does it to a couple of people, doesn't he? Don't they? In
they do,
general,
yeah.
they all kind of talk to someone as if they said something to them. It's like, I didn't say anything. It's like, oh shit, right. Sorry about that. Like, they can't even
Yeah.
control it 20 years later.
Yeah.
So it's like he has no choice but to slip into it, and then his patients must freak out on him about, like, I literally never told you that. What's going on here? How is he
Yeah.
not disbarred? If there's a bar for that, I don't understand how that works. But then it cuts over to Jonesy, and he's professor. Is that what he is?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, because the kid comes in with
Yeah,
the
with the
like
cheated test.
and the
And
ratty
he,
old shoes.
yeah, and he tears the test up, and he gives him another chance.
Yeah, said you had the flu that day.
Yeah, that confused me as a kid when I watched it. I didn't get what that scene was going on. Like, the kid at the end, he's like, "How did you know? You weren't even there." Is he talking about how did he know that he cheated?
I have no idea. I didn't get that either.
It was just really because at first I was like, how do you know that? You weren't even there. Like, how did he know you had the flu? But you didn't have the flu. You guys are lying about that right now.
Yeah.
So it can't be about the flu. So it must be about the cheated test, which, if he's his teacher, how would he not have been there that day to see him cheating?
Yeah.
How does he have the authority to override the cheated test if he's not his teacher? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense.
There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, it's a really lame and poorly written way to get someone to, like, show, like, oh, he's got that power too.
Yeah, to like acknowledge it.
Yeah, like, oh, you weren't there. How did you know? It's like, that, it doesn't make any sense there. I think we can just sort of infer that since they're friends, and I think like a minute later he like reads someone's mind anyway. So it's like,
Yeah.
why did you even need that line? So yeah, Jonesy's a teacher. Pete is a car salesman who uses his like psychic abilities to try to pick up ladies, and they're always freaked out by him because later when he's drunk, he's like complaining about that scenario, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's something that's been
Just
like,
wanting to go get the clam.
yeah,
The
it's
fried clams.
just trying to give you the best fried clams, and freaking out about it. Beaver, we don't really know what he's just at a bar, and then he wanders to a payphone and he calls Jonesy
Yeah.
and tells him to be careful, and then Jonesy gets hit by a car.
Yes.
Because he saw a vision of Duddits like telling him to come towards him.
Yeah.
So that's like the whole setup. You don't get all of that information right up front though in the movie. This is one of
No.
those movies that refuses to make sense
Yeah.
until later, where they like drop stuff on you. But at that point, you're so far down the fucking like pike that you're like, I don't even care about that anymore.
Yeah.
All this crazier shit has happened. I could give less of a shit about why Jonesy walked into the street. Morgan Freeman just mowed down a bunch of aliens in a helicopter with a machine gun. I don't care about the car anymore.
Yeah.
But it refuses to explain itself as it goes on until finally the like very middle of the movie when Morgan Freeman finally shows up,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. And then he tells us all about the fucking aliens.
Mhm.
But so the four of them, they all go to this like cabin out in the woods.
Mhm.
They apparently have been doing it for 20 years, which seems weird because then they do the 20 years earlier and they're like little kids. And it's
Yeah,
like, so
they're
they all
like
came out here as little
maybe
kids?
12.
Yeah, like they all came out here as kids. What, with all of their parents, with no adult supervision? Who owns this cabin?
Yeah. Like, is it just in one of their families and like
Like,
they
that would
would
be my
all like
assumption.
that and it now they just use it?
Yeah, like if
I don't know. Where is this cabin? What state are we in?
I'm assuming we're in Maine because of how quickly they get to Derry and Massachusetts. Because Derry, Maine is like Stephen King's like fictional town where all the bad shit happens. That's
right.
where it happens. It's referenced all over the place.
I'm glad he keeps it all in one town so I can just avoid it.
I mean, it's not a real town.
I know. I'll still avoid it.
Just in case. So they go to this cabin and they get split up. So there's Beaver and Jonesy and Pete and Henry.
Yeah, because
separate.
Pete and Henry went to the store.
Yeah, and they get in a car crash. And then Jonesy and Beaver are sitting there at the cabin with that fucking with a guy who shows up all covered in like alien junk, all covered in like alien fungus.
Right, because they were out hunting.
Yeah, they were out hunting. They see this guy with fungus on him. They bring him in to like keep him warm, and then it turns out he has some sort of horrifying alien growing inside of him.
Alien parasite that comes out your bum.
Yeah, and it makes you really gassy, which was such a like again. I'm 100% certain that that's like part of the book. And I also understand the concept of like if it's coming in through like say if it's coming in through your mouth and it like, does whatever it does through your digestive system, then I totally get the like scientific plausibility of it causing horrible like burps and farts.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're trying to sell us a like horror thriller movie and this is supposed to be spooky. And the guy just won't stop farting.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God, he's farting. Like, they don't even play it as like, it's okay, it's okay.
I mean,
they do it for him, but then the movie still follows them as they're going like, oh, Jesus Christ, give me some air. Oh God, we need a hazmat suit. Like, they're still playing it as jokey farts. And it's like, this is an alien invasion movie. Cut it out with the farts. The only time it's funny is when Pete's drunk. And he's yelling at the lady who's like laying there unconscious. I think she's dead at that point, but it's like he's just been sitting there with her and he's just like, it's like, oh yeah, you just need to save up your energy for those horrendous farts. And he like yells it at her. So one time it's like, okay, all right. But it's not worth it. Cut all that out of the movie. No need for that shit. Again, probably works okay in the book because you're not literally hearing fart noises. You can just read
fart noise.
Yeah, that a fart occurred. And you're not sitting there in your head like
yeah.
like you read it and you keep moving. So it turns out like at that point in the movie, you don't know so much. It's just like, so there's these guys. I don't even know if we've gotten the flashback scene of them saving Duddits yet. I think we may have at that point, but they just keep like cryptically talking about this friend of theirs.
Yeah.
And then aliens show up. And it's so unconnected.
It's so weird.
The whole beginning of the movie with the psychic powers and talking about their friend Duddits and all this stuff, it seems like it's leading in a totally different direction. There's no foreshadowing of the stuff to come. Like of what literally is about to happen in the movie of like, and aliens fly out of people's asses and Beaver gets his face eaten off and Jonesy inhales a whole bunch of spores and takes an alien person into his brain. And it's just like, whoa, we were all just hanging around drinking beer one scene ago.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's a literal alien invasion. Morgan Freeman rolls up in a helicopter. And now the whole game has changed.
Yeah.
And not even in like a really clever way of like, oh, I thought this movie was going to go like this, but they totally flipped it and they went this way and it was really cool. And this one, it's like, okay, I clearly see where we're going. What is that? Are those aliens? Where did these aliens come from? Did you have any clue there were aliens in this movie?
I had no idea there were aliens in this movie. When they found the guy.
Yeah, Rick.
The hunter, and they brought him back to the cabin. Obviously, like I noticed his stomach moving and like
something
how his
was wrong
chest
with
was.
him.
Yeah, there was something wrong. Like it was mentioned that his chest was huge and now his stomach is huge, so clearly it's moved. And I was like, okay, so it's gonna like turn him into something. Like
you didn't see something coming out of him.
I was thinking like take over from within sort of situation.
Gotcha.
Because of the like growth. Thing,
the
whole spores,
the fungus stuff that grows on everything. The Ripley.
Yeah.
I do like that they call it that after that broad from that Alien movie. That's funny.
But I also am watching this after having played the game The Last of Us,
Mm.
which
So it's
deals
more
with
of a zombie-esque kind of thing where it like takes you over and makes you into something that will attack you, and it's not just like, no, we use you as a host.
Yeah.
Like a really gross version of Alien, where instead of bursting out of somebody's chest, it comes out their ass.
Yeah.
Which completely faithful to the book.
Okay.
The book, which was admittedly by Stephen King, he said he wrote it under the influence of a shitload of OxyContin because of the car accident he was in the year before, because he got fucking nailed by a truck while out on a walk.
I heard about that.
And
yeah.
it was just like horrific. It shattered bones, nearly killed him, but didn't. And so during recovery, he was like, well, I guess I'll write. So that's why Jonesy gets nailed by a car in the movie and the book.
Makes sense.
It's sort of like a reference to that. But yeah, the lunacy of the alien creatures and the way that they work is clearly just him throwing shit at the wall, just like fucking, and then fucking they'll come out their asses.
Alien slugs.
And shit weasels. It's just so fucking weird.
Weasel is a good. Well, they're worm-like. I think they call them worms.
I mean, they call them. Morgan Freeman calls them shit weasels.
Oh, right.
When they're explaining everything, but yeah,
Right.
Duddits calls them worms at the end. Like, one worm will destroy the world and all that. So the alien comes out of the hunter, Rick.
Right.
It kills Beaver because he has a horrible fixation on those toothpicks and he can't not have one in his mouth. So he's leaning off the toilet they have it trapped in.
Yeah.
So then it punches up and knocks him off the seat and fucking eats his face.
Yes.
So then,
after eating his hand,
yes,
his fingers.
That was nuts.
Oh.
The fact that it just like snaps at him and he's like, what happened? And then he looks at his hand and his fingers are gone.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yes.
Like horror movie style. Like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah, that was a gross moment.
Yeah. So he gets eaten, and then Jonesy, instead of getting eaten, one of the aliens like explodes into spores, and he like inhales its essence apparently.
Yeah.
And it like takes over his body. So Jonesy is in the memory warehouse.
Yes, which is a physical place in his mind.
In his brain. It is so weird. It's like,
is that like his like extra special power? Like,
I mean, that's my assumption. So, it's just like trying to get through the goddamn plot of this movie to explain everything to get to the end so we can just try to work out what the hell was going on. Because there's apparently there was a plan in place all along, and I still can't quite figure it out. Because that's sort of like the whole thing with this movie is that it's like, there's that scene early on with Henry and Jonesy where he's like, I don't know why Duddits pulled me out into the street to get hit by that car. Like, I don't know why he led me out there to get hit by the car. And Henry's like, oh, maybe there's more to the story. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so it's like there's something that's been going on around these guys that they're not fully aware of, and they're kind of just like playing their parts, apparently.
Yeah.
It was just weirding me out because I was like, I felt like this movie made sense when I was a kid, at least to a certain extent. Like, as silly as it was, it felt like it at least made some internal sense. And it's like, I guess I just wasn't thinking about it hard enough as a kid, because now it just makes none at all.
One of my notes is just what the fuck. And then the next note is what the actual fuck. That was when the whole first alien out the butt happened.
Oh, yeah.
And then what the actual fuck came when it turned into a big alien.
Yeah, it didn't turn into a big alien. That big alien was there.
Oh, that's right.
And the wormy one like slid up its leg and was hanging out with it and whatever. There's something about that later that bugs me in terms of just plotting that seems really dumb, which is again a part of the whole like, what the fuck was the whole plan in the first place if there apparently was one. So Beaver's dead. Jonesy's taken over by the fucking other alien. And then Henry is coming back to the cabin to try to find everybody because, he knows shit's going wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
and he...
Well, no, he was going back to get the snowmobile.
Right, to get help to come back.
Because they got in the car crash.
Right, because Pete's hurt.
The lady.
Yeah, because lady makes him crash. Pete gets hurt. Henry goes back to the cabin to go get the snowmobile. whatever. Pete, in the meantime, gets attacked by another one of those weasels, which absolutely should have bit his dick off. If it bit
Absolutely.
off Beaver's fingers, then it bit off Pete's dick.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the way he says, like,
100%.
he's like, oh, Henry, Jonesy, he tried to bite my dick off. I was like, he did bite your dick off as far as anyone's concerned. The way it moved, it was exactly the same thing. Like, and it goes at him, and it doesn't even just snap at him. It latches onto his junk for like a minute straight until he humps a fire and burns it, and it runs away. And it's like, it ate your dick at that point. That's it. It's over.
You don't have a dick no more.
It seemed weird that it just didn't.
Yeah.
Because I'm absolutely certain that's not how it goes down in the book, where it's like Pete gets up to pee and then the weasel jumps on his dick. Like, I'm sure it's much different than that. I don't even know if that exact sequence of events happens.
Okay.
But like in the movie, it's like, okay, so it's like it's leaping up at your junk. That means it's. I thought about it for way too long. I'll just put it that way. It did not need to be thought about this long. So Henry goes back to the cabin and he finds the worm, and he finds that it's like all covered in that, or the whole cabin's covered in the Ripley.
Yeah, it's starting to overgrow everything.
Yeah, he finds the beaver is dead. He finds the worm with like on the bed with a clutch of eggs, and he like shoots the worm, and he goes to burn the eggs, but then he sees some other eggs that have already hatched. But then it winds up not mattering anyway because he just burns the whole fucking place down. So it's like, oh, okay.
I mean, at that point,
I thought they were going to be gone, you know? Like, oh, shit. But then they all just come out from under the bed and he burns them anyway. So it was like, oh, okay. I guess he got them all. So Mr. Gray is the alien thing that's in Jonesy's head.
Yes.
And he is taking Jonesy so that he can get to the reservoir for all of like Boston's water supply or something.
Yes.
And he's going to put a worm in it. And for whatever reason, not even that I'm complaining, because it's like it's space alien nonsense. I wouldn't understand it anyway. But like if you put a worm into the water supply, then it'll destroy the whole world. Like eventually, not just like in an instant. Like so the worm hits the water and the whole world explodes.
Yeah.
But like it's horrible for the world if the worm gets in there. So he wants to get a worm into a baby worm, or I guess it has to be a baby worm. Otherwise he would have just thrown that one in there immediately, you know?
I mean, I think he was waiting. It seemed like he was waiting for it to just like crawl its way in.
Which, I mean, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Take some initiative.
Seriously.
So he wants to get a worm into the water supply. This is just sounds so fucking insane. Just saying these words.
A worm in the water.
Yeah. So a worm in the water is worth 2 in the worm. So there's this worm. Jonesy wants to get it into the water, and he's basically just like hitchhiking his way to the reservoir. He keeps like getting a ride and killing the person who's driving or whatever. Jonesy's in his head hiding information from Mr. Gray. He's not really doing anything else. He can't like affect anything from inside Jonesy's head.
He did get the phone call though.
Oh yeah, Henry. He was able to. No, he made the phone call to Henry.
That's right. From
the like safe space in the warehouse where he's safe from the monsters. But yeah, so he's just up in his brain, and Mr. Gray is driving them out there. Finally, he gets a cop car and he's driving them himself.
Yeah.
And he's got a dog that he has implanted with the worm so that he can get a worm out of it. And or no, he makes the dog eat the meat that's tainted with the Ripley so that it grows a worm so that he can put the worm in the water. Which, like, as much as I hate again, like the dog dying in movies and shit. It was like, okay, well, I mean, I guess that's what he needs. He needs an organic host to get the worm to put it into the water. So I guess it makes sense. Until we got to the end of the movie, and I could have thought of this earlier, but I didn't. But we got to the end of the movie, and the dog thing happened where the worm comes out of it, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, so the dog's dead now. And I was like, yeah, well, I guess there was no other way, except that worm at the cabin.
Yeah.
That he just left behind to leave eggs for Henry to burn. Why didn't he bring that worm with him? Why did he need eggs laid at the cabin? That wasn't going to help anybody or hurt anybody or take over the world. Apparently getting into the water supply was his plan the whole time. Why did he just bring that worm with him?
I have no idea.
It was ridiculous. Like, why? Like, and like... Because it would hang out with him too. Like the dog, he has to like drag around because it's like sick and horrible. The worm would just like chill on his shoulder the whole time. Like why would he opt for the more difficult thing? Didn't make any sense.
I don't know if he wanted to like help spread the worms quicker
But I mean,
in that
apparently
particular area.
just like apparently worm in reservoir equals game over. So why do anything else? And so Henry and oh god, we haven't even scratched the goddamn Morgan Freeman part of the movie.
Oh, that's right.
So
there's the whole blue unit.
Yeah, blue unit. So while all of this bullshit is happening, more bullshit is happening. And Morgan Freeman is playing Colonel Curtis, which is one of those goddamn silly little things that they do when they change books into movies.
What's his name in the book?
In the book, his name is Colonel Kurtz, which is a very specific reference to Apocalypse Now, where Marlon Brando's character is Colonel Kurtz. So it's like it's an homage.
Yeah.
Apparently, changing the format from being a book into a movie, they thought it was too on the nose to have a movie character named Colonel Kurtz, named after a movie character. I guess that was their point of view. But they changed it to Curtis. And it was like, the whole point is that he's kind of fucking insane like Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. So changing the name kind of like robs it of that a little bit, but whatever. So Colonel Curtis and his little buddy, Tom Sizemore, I guess his name is Owen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's his first or last name. I don't recall any other information about him other than he had a father at one point that he carries a picture of.
And they call him Bucko?
They call everyone Bucko in Blue Unit. I thought he was just calling Tom Sizemore Bucko. And I was like, everyone's got little fucking nicknames for everyone in this movie. It's really annoying. And then throughout the movie, fucking Curtis keeps calling like all of his dudes in Blue Unit Bucko.
Oh,
and I was like,
right.
Is that their term? Because like he makes the guy recite their rules, and it's like, we are not a normal military unit. We will not use our ranks, you know. So he's
or sir.
Yeah, so he's boss, not sir. So I guess instead of saying like private or whatever they are, he just calls everyone Bucko as his thing. But that's super annoying.
Yes.
Very stupid.
Agreed. 100%.
His unit is in the town right outside where the cabin is, and they know about the alien invasion. Like apparently they crash landed and they know about it. His team's been on the hunt for aliens for like 25 years.
Yeah, they've been fighting ETs.
Yeah, for 25 years. And so this happens. They go out, they quarantine the town. They have a bunch of civilians locked up because they have the Ripley on them. One of his soldiers lets a lady through the checkpoint. And it turns out she had Ripley on him, so she shoots him. Sorry, she doesn't do anything, and the kid lets her through the checkpoint. So as punishment, he shoots the kid through the hand, and then afterwards he says, "I'm sorry, I lost my temper." Like, yeah, a little bit, buddy. So that was insane. So you know he's crazy from the start, and that's kind of the point of his character, is that he's like out of his mind.
Okay.
Problem is that Tom Sizemore isn't any better. You know what I mean? Like right at the top, he's like, I will absolutely do everything that you say, crazy person. And you're like, okay, so this guy's nuts too. Yeah. And then by the end of it, it seems like the only reason he changes his mind is because Henry reads his mind. And he's like, what are your kids going to think if they know that you killed all these American citizens to keep the Ripley from spreading?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh shit, you're right. Let's go save the world. So he's not really a hero.
He's just an accomplice to the hero.
Yeah, and he dies and nobody cares. But he's driving Henry to go get Duddits, grown up now, to come help them because, you know, they've been thinking about Duddits a lot recently. And they think there must be some sort of connection here. And so they go and pick up Duddits, who is Donnie Wahlberg, in the weirdest role. You didn't know that was Donnie Wahlberg?
I didn't know that was Donnie Wahlberg.
Did you not see Donnie Wahlberg in the credits?
I must have been writing Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah, no, that was Donnie Wahlberg as Duddits.
Holy shit.
Right?
Wow.
Oh, wasn't that nuts?
That's insane.
That's wild. It's almost impressive, like, as a movie, to be like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Like, because of the fact.
It took me a minute with his role in
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
He's got some skills, man.
Yeah. Underrated Wahlberg.
Yeah, this one is just, it runs that fine line between a really good it's that fucking gag from Tropic Thunder about you never go full retard. And so sitting there and watching it, it's super weird. The character itself is super weird.
I
Like,
have questions about that. But
exactly.
keep going because they involve stuff from the end.
Right. But I mean, so they go to pick up Duddits, who is, at this point, he's dying of like leukemia or something.
Mhm.
The way that he talks as Duddits is like one fucking step above like, "Duh," you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's really rough. It's like,
Yeah.
I Duddits. It's like,
Yeah, it's
come on, man.
it's
Super stereotypical, super like,
infantile.
yeah, it's like it doesn't feel like it's based on a real person. It feels like
Mhm.
it's based on someone making fun of someone.
Yeah.
Um, even though you know that that's not their intention in the movie, but you still can't help but feel like, guys, come on.
You could have done a little better.
Yeah, it's a little silly, but it just gets even sillier. I think because it's at that point in the movie, because that's so late in the movie when he
Mhm.
finally shows up. It's like hour 45 into like this 2 hour movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, fine. I guess you're in this too. It's
Yeah.
like there's fucking aliens, there's fucking shit weasels, there's fucking Jason Lee, there's fucking like all this shit. Fine. Throw in Donnie Wahlberg as a retarded kid. Who cares anymore? And then at the very, very end of the movie, he's trying to get the worm into that reservoir, and Henry comes in to save the day, but he's out of bullets now because he shoots at the weasel.
Well, the weasel jumps on his gun.
Yeah, and lands on the barrel of his gun, and he just like fires into its mouth and
Yeah.
kills it. But
But
there's
the
one egg inside that comes
Mhm.
out, and it's like it was just born.
How does
Are
it
they born with eggs in them ready to go? I don't understand this alien biology at all.
Yeah,
And they make no attempts to explain it.
none whatsoever.
So Duddits comes up because at that point, I don't even know what they had him do. Like he tells Henry where they're going,
Mhm.
and then that's it. And then Henry's literally like, "You just stay in the car, dude. I'm gonna go save the world. You've done your shit." And he just leaves him in the car. So then when he goes in and he confronts Jonesy, aka Mr. Gray, and then he runs out of bullets because he's shooting the weasel, you're
Mhm.
like, "Oh no, what's gonna happen now?" And Duddits rolls in.
Yeah.
At that point, where did you think it was going?
I had no idea. I was like, I don't like this kid's gonna have some sort of magical power
Mm-hmm.
or something. Like, I figured that him as a person was going to do something.
Like I was saying earlier, the movie refuses to make sense over the course of like the runtime in the way that you're like, okay, there's more that I'm not seeing.
Mhm.
Something eventually is going to come down and be the like keystone to like be like, oh, now I see the whole bigger picture.
Mhm.
You're waiting for that moment, and that seems like it's going to be it.
Yeah.
Duddits rolls in. He's walking up towards the big giant monster version of Mr. Gray who has come out of Jonesy's face. I don't even remember what happened. He
It's
just sort of shows up, but
yeah.
Jonesy's still there. But now Mr. Gray is also there physically as an alien.
Mhm.
So Mr. Gray is standing there. Duddits walks up to him, and you're like, okay, here it is. Whatever's about to happen is going to explain all this shit that just went down. Because it's like, okay, so they meet him as kids.
Mhm.
He gives them magical powers.
Mhm.
They're all connected over the years. They think about each other all the time. They call each other. Apparently, they don't hang out as much except for the like once a year at the cabin or whatever.
Mhm.
And so they're all together for when this alien invasion comes.
Right.
And it seems like that's like they keep mentioning that that's like on purpose
Yeah.
or something. Like there was one specific line right towards the end where it's like something about Mr. Gray. He's like figuring something out when he's still in Jonesy.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Oh, that's why you didn't have anything about me in your brain, because your friend knew not to tell you about me." So it's like,
Yeah.
so Duddits knew that the alien invasion was coming this whole time. And then when it turns out he's an alien, you're like, oh, okay. In the way that it's like,
Man.
well, it's like, it's like if Mr. Gray expected him to have told them about him,
Mhm.
then I guess it makes sense that he would be from like a warring alien civilization. Like if Duddits
Yeah.
already knows about the aliens, then it's like, okay, then Duddits probably is an alien
Mhm.
in a human form, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But none of what those guys do helps Duddits other than get him to the
Yeah.
place, which makes it seem like they are not important to him at all. The whole movie, they're like, Duddits loves us.
Yeah.
And we love Duddits. And it's this huge powerful connection. And then when Duddits shows up as an alien and fucking murders the beast before it can do anything, and they squash the bug and it doesn't get into or they squash the worm and it doesn't get into the water, it seems like, oh, all these friends finally did the thing that they were meant to do.
Yeah.
But none of them do anything. Like, it seems like Duddits just thought, like, in 20 years, I'm going to need a ride. so I'm gonna befriend these guys and give them these powers so that they're in the position to give me that ride. That feels like what it's about, because then the movie ends immediately. He steps on the worm, he looks up, and it cuts to black.
Like, wait,
there's no resolution. There's no, like, they don't talk about anything. They're not like, holy shit, that was pretty nuts, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else. That's just where the movie ends. And you're sitting there like, why? Why did any of this happen? Like, why couldn't Duddits just do something about this?
Yeah.
Like, if he's an alien who can turn into like a fully functional alien who can do because apparently that alien isn't retarded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why would it choose that form to take on Earth?
That is one of my biggest questions. Is like, if this is a seemingly like all-knowing alien, like,
who can give people psychic powers?
Yeah, like it knows all this stuff that's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Did he not know that this was a mentally disabled person that would eventually get leukemia?
Really? That's the
Like-
word. Like, I mean, I guess that could just be chalked up to bad luck for an alien to be like, I'll choose this person, and then eventually they'll get a terrible disease. Like, oh shit! But also,
Right.
was he inhabiting Douglas Cavell, or was Douglas Cavell an alien? Because he didn't come out the way that Mr. Gray
Right.
came out of Jonesy and left Jonesy behind. Duddits turned into an alien. He was an alien.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
So that means that he had to have like taken his form on Earth. He must have chosen or found a way to make a human form on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he choose a handicapped kid? And not even in a way of like, because that would suck. But like, if your plan is to defend Earth
Yeah.
for some reason, again, no idea why. We don't know who this alien is or why he gives a fuck about Earth. Is the only reason he's saving Earth because he likes those guys? Or
Yeah,
was this a plan all along? Like, nothing
They made a
is
good
expla-
impression.
Yeah, so he's like, I guess I'll stick around and save you guys
Yeah.
when the time comes. I'm still going to need that ride. But yeah, it makes no sense. And fucking Morgan Freeman his helicopter gets shot down because he comes chasing after him. Like, I'm almost just too exhausted to even go into the ending of his story.
Oh, yeah.
Because like they call for the General Matheson or something like that.
Mhm, the 3-star general.
Yeah, the 3-star general. They call for the general. Sounds like a fucking insurance commercial. They call for the general. He comes in and he's like, essentially does the like, we'll take it from here bit.
Mhm.
But they just let him do shit. You know what I mean? He still is just like, you know what? I still need to use some of my things for about an hour if that's okay. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then he goes and gets a helicopter and he goes to chase down
Yeah.
Jonesy and murder them and whatever, which he's not necessarily wrong in doing that. If they wound up failing, he would have been the best backup to basically blow that whole building apart and destroy the worm. Like, he probably would have been able to get the job done.
Mhm.
He was just insane about it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that allegedly Owen went and told the general that Curtis was going to slaughter all those civilians.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand how that isn't like an immediate, like, you are gone.
Yeah.
Get out. Helicopter back to Washington. You're going to have to answer for so much.
Yeah.
And instead they're just like, oh, by the way, we got this.
Mhm.
Hang around for a bit if you need to, but just, we're good here.
Yeah.
And that's all they do. It's like he was
Right.
going to murder everybody.
Mhm.
And he like told his soldiers that was the plan.
Mhm.
And they come in with guns drawn. When
Yeah,
the
the
general
ar-
shows up,
when
the
the
actual army
army,
shows
yeah.
up and they're like, blue unit, fucking
Stand down.
stand down. And they're like taking them over.
Yeah.
And yet they're just like, oh no, yeah, Curtis, you're cool, whatever. You can come and go. you're not
What?
detained
Why?
at all for this.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's so funny too. Like, I haven't even gotten to any of my notes because it's literally just like, what the fuck was even happening
Yeah,
in this movie?
Yeah. Still trying to figure that one out.
Like, I've got a bunch in here. Like, this movie, there's so much slack-jawed gawking. So much. So many scenes. There's literally just somebody walking into a room and their mouth going like, and they're just staring at something that we're not seeing. And then eventually it'll turn around and show us. Or sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But just so much slack-jawed gawking. I did love Damian Lewis hamming it up as Mr. Grey with that British accent.
Yeah.
You know,
that was great.
That was really wonderful. It's a great choice, and it's like clearly the guy who has had the best role in the movie, because it's like, oh man, you get to do a bunch of shit. So you get to do a bunch of different shit.
And you're like in the whole movie.
Yeah, really. It's like you're technically both the bad guy and the good guy. It's pretty cool. Like, that's dope. I like Tom Jane a lot too, so I was glad he was in it as Henry. Jason Lee and Timothy Olyphant, obviously, I love both of them. So it's like it really is a stacked cast. It's a shame that they're so horribly that this is what fucking comes out. I wrote it plus Stand By Me plus Aliens. Like, that's the movie.
Yeah.
Because that fucking kid, Beaver, the kid version of Beaver, when they show him and he's sitting, he's got the dark glasses as well and everything. And I'm like, this is just Richie from It. This is the same character. The smart-mouthed, dark glasses wearing little shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the exact same goddamn character. And then there's that shot when they're looking for the girl and they're walking on the train tracks and they're coming down from the train tracks. I'm like, that's a shot from Stand By Me.
Yep.
It's like it's just a whole bunch of old Stephen King shit splattered into this movie, and then there's aliens on top of it.
Yeah.
Did Blue Unit seem completely ineffectual to you in terms of like not being the best of the best?
Absolutely. They were no Men in Black.
Yeah, because I wrote, like, why are these lifelong alien fighters constantly surprised by what the aliens are doing?
Yeah.
He has apparently been hunting, and not just any old aliens, but these aliens.
Yeah, these specific ones.
Because he says, like, oh, they're doing that trick where they're using the gray boy look, the alien, the cool, friendly-looking alien look. That isn't what their real form is. And I've seen their real form, and I know it's horrible. You wouldn't want it dating your sister. What a fucking line. But then when they're flying in to kill them, and you start hearing the voices of like, there's no threat here. Do not hurt us. And Colonel Curtis is like, whose radio is that? And they're like, it's not a radio, it's them. And it's like, how do you not know that they can do that? That they can psychically call to you if you've been hunting them for 25 years?
Yeah.
Like, you would know this trick already. Why is this a surprise to you? Does not make sense. Also, he says that Owen is going to take over for him. He's like, this is my last hurrah. And you'll take over after this. And Owen's like, yeah, totally cool. Sounds great. I have no morals at all until someone yells at me about it or makes me feel bad. So when they're going towards the quarantine thing and they're going to walk through that like warehouse full of infected people, Curtis says to him, I'll show you things you wish you'd never seen. If he's supposed to take over for him, how has he not been briefed on this before? How is he this green?
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be the leader literally like
after this is over.
Yeah, once this is done, he takes over everything. Like, and he doesn't know about this part?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. It's nonsense, and not even really truly in a way where I would be like, you have to see it to get it. It's like, no, you'll sit and you'll watch it and you'll be like, why did you tell me to watch that?
Yeah. Like, we didn't tell you to watch it. I'm going on the record now.
Go watch some like clips on YouTube, find the weirdest scenes, and then I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah.
And you'll get the gist of it. There's really no need to watch the entirety of this movie. And because like, again, like the first like maybe like 20 minutes or so just seems like it's setting up, like it seems like it's very much like it's setting up a Stephen King story. But it does not feel like it's setting up the story that it winds up getting to.
Yeah.
It goes so far off the rails. I don't know if I even have anything else.
Yeah, that damn purple book.
I mean, I almost want to read it again because I remember liking it more. I remember that Beaver dies like the exact same way essentially as the movie. But Pete does not just get eaten by a giant version of an alien.
Okay.
He, there's that moment when Mr. Grey is like using like a force arm at Pete, and he starts like on the ground because he's got all that Ripley stuff on him.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Grey has like a control of it, and he can kind of like contract it and like squeeze it, and like hurt you. And in the book, I think Pete mouths off or some shit or whatever, or he outruns his usefulness or whatever, and Mr. Grey crushes his skull with it by
Oh,
like flexing it and like and kills him. And it's super
that's
gruesome and cool. And in the movie, it's kind of lame.
yeah.
um,
Damn. That
yeah,
like as much as I didn't want the character to die because
yeah,
I loved Timothy Oliphant, that would have been a lot cooler to see.
yeah. I mean, it's not like it would have helped anything. There's so much wrong with it.
Yeah.
It would have just been one more moment of like,
Yeah.
in a movie full of,
Huh? What?
what? But why? And on those uncertain notes, I think that's going to do it for Popcorn for Dinner this week. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
I gotta pee.